This happened about 10 years ago. My mom passed away, and I had to go back to my childhood home. I was 32 and felt overwhelmed by everything. I hadn't been there since I left for college. The house stood at the edge of a thick forest, just how I remembered. The backyard felt small and cramped now, like the trees were closing in on me. The treehouse I used to love was in bad shape, covered in vines and looking neglected. As I started sorting through old boxes, I heard something. It was laughter. It came from the treehouse. I froze for a moment, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But then I heard it again. I felt chills run down my spine. I shrugged it off and went back to packing up my mom's things. The next day, I felt uneasy. I kept seeing shadows move in the treehouse. My heart raced. I thought I was losing it. Then the laughter returned, more clear, almost playful. I stood at the treehouse door, my hands trembling. It was locked, but I still heard those giggles. I didn't know what to think. Days went by, and the laughter rang in my ears. I decided to visit the treehouse again. It was a part of my childhood, a memory I cherished. But when I pushed the door open, I gasped. There were toys and art supplies scattered on the floor. I was sure I didn't leave anything. My stomach dropped. It felt like someone had been there without my knowledge. Maybe they had. Every night, the laughter grew louder. It seemed to haunt me, wrapping around my memories. I recalled playing there with my friends, telling stories and dreaming big. Those days felt so far away. I wanted to run, but I stood beneath the tree, staring up, desperate for answers. On my last night there, the laughter reached a new height. I walked outside, feeling my heart race, and looked up. A small boy was in the treehouse, staring at me with wide eyes. I felt a lump form in my throat as I called out to him. "Are you okay?" No response. My feet wanted to run, but I just stood there. Then he smiled, a grin that chilled me to the bone, and whispered, "Why are you here?" I turned to flee, but no one was behind me. My breath caught in my throat. Then I felt the ground shake beneath me. It was as if the earth knew something I didn't. My heart pounded, and I felt like I might scream. I forced myself to look back at the treehouse. But the boy was gone. The laughter faded, but the air felt heavy. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. I backed away slowly, my eyes fixed on the dark corners of the treehouse. As I turned to leave, I couldn't shake the dread lingering in my chest. I had to get out of there. I didn't know what I experienced, but it felt like I was never really alone. The next morning, I awoke in a panic. My dreams had been filled with shadows and laughter. I forgot about my mom's belongings. I couldn't think straight. After a long shower, I forced myself to focus on the task at hand. I had to finish packing and leave this place behind. But as I moved through the house, memories flooded back. It was strange how a corner of the living room could make me feel safe and terrified all at once. With each box I filled, I thought about the boy in the treehouse. His eyes were etched in my mind, and I couldn't stop questioning what he meant by, "Why are you here?" I finally decided I had to know more. I grabbed my jacket and walked to the neighbor's house. Mrs. Johnson lived next door for as long as I could remember. Her garden was as vibrant as ever, and she always had a smile. I knocked, feeling a mix of dread and courage. When she opened the door, I could see concern wash over her face. "Oh, dear. I heard about your mom. I'm so sorry," she said softly. Her words caught in my throat, but I pushed through. "I was hoping you could talk to me about the treehouse," I said, trying to sound casual. "I've been hearing things." Mrs. Johnson's smile faded. That treehouse. It was a special place for many children. But, well, there are some stories about it. I leaned closer, eager to hear more. Her tone shifted. Kids whispered about it at school. They said it was haunted. Haunted? I almost laughed, but my heart pounded at the thought. A little boy went missing around that area years ago, she said, her eyes clouding with memories. Some believed he was playing in the treehouse the day he disappeared. My stomach dropped. I wanted to ask her more, but fear paralyzed me. I considered the boy's presence and the laughter that echoed through the air. What did this mean? As I walked back to my house, ice-cold anxiety wrapped around my chest. I had to know more about this boy. It felt like he was calling me back. I reached the treehouse and felt drawn to it despite the dread pooling in my gut. I stood at the bottom of the ladder, hesitating. Then I heard it again, the laughter. Not just echoes of my childhood, but real, distinct joy. It was inviting, almost pleading. I didn't want to go up there again, but I couldn't ignore it. With shaky hands, I climbed the ladder. The familiar wood creaked under my weight. My heart hammered as I reached the top. The first thing I noticed was the scattered toys. The second, a small trunk tucked away in the corner I hadn't seen before. I reached for it, my pulse racing. That's when I saw the boy's face on an old, worn photograph resting beside the trunk. It all hit me like a wave. I felt a chill racing down my spine. Who was he, really? Before I could gather my thoughts, the laughter crescendoed again, louder and more boisterous. It felt like a warning. I had to leave. As I clutched the photograph, everything went dark. The laughter stopped, and in the silence, I felt the dread turn into fear. I needed to get out before it took me too. I gasped, pushing against the floor of the treehouse, fumbling for the ladder. My heart raced as I felt a cold breath of wind brush past me. The darkness cloaked everything, stripping away sight and sound. I couldn't see, and I couldn't breathe. With a sudden jolt, the darkness receded. I was back outside, tumbling from the bottom rung of the ladder onto the cool grass. The sun shone brightly, but the laughter lingered, echoing in my mind. I scrambled to my feet, clutching the photograph of the boy. The treehouse loomed above me, both inviting and foreboding. I felt a trembling in my hands as I turned the photograph over. In faded ink, a name was scrawled across the back, Eli Thompson. That name jolted memories I thought I had buried. I remembered hearing whispers in school about Eli, how his laughter once filled the neighborhood before he vanished. I needed to talk to Mrs. Johnson again. She might know what happened to him and why his spirit still lingered in that treehouse. As I hurried back to her house, I tried to shake the anxiety pulsing in my chest. I couldn't believe I had come across a link to a boy who had become a ghost story to me, a child who may still be waiting for something. Mrs. Johnson welcomed me back with shock twisting her features. "You're back, dear. Did you find something?" "I found a photograph of Eli Thompson," I stammered, desperation coating my words. "I need to know what happened to him." A shadow crossed her face, and she glanced over her shoulder as if checking for unseen listeners. "Eli was a sweet boy," she said quietly. "He loved that treehouse more than anything. The last day anyone saw him, he was playing there." "What happened?" I pressed, urgency tinging my voice. "He went missing after that," she replied, her voice trembling. "Some said he fell, but others thought he might still be around, seeking something that was never found." "Seeking something," I echoed, remembering the laughter I had heard. The idea twisted in my stomach. Could he be looking for help? Mrs. Johnson's eyes softened, sympathy spilling over. "Children always feel things before adults do. If he is still up there, maybe he wants someone to play with. Or maybe he is stuck, calling for help." A knot of dread formed in my throat. I could feel Eli's presence even stronger now, like a kite tangled in the branches of that treehouse. Before I could speak again, the air around us shifted. I suddenly saw movement in the corner of my eye. A flash of white darted past the window behind Mrs. Johnson. "Did you see that?" I gasped. Her expression shifted to horror. What was that? I stepped back instinctively, the photograph slipping from my fingers. It fluttered to the ground, face up. For a moment, I stood frozen, my heart racing as I felt a coldness creeping back into the room, a presence pressing against us. Get back! Mrs. Johnson yelled suddenly, drawing me from my thoughts. It was just the beginning. I knew it. Whatever was stirring in the air wasn't finished with me yet. And I had to figure out why. I stumbled back, my heart pounding loudly in my ears. Mrs. Johnson's fear only fueled my own. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had flickered by the window was connected to Eli. I darted forward and snatched the photograph from the floor, clutching it tightly between my fingers. I have to go back to the treehouse, I blurted out. The words felt like a leap into the unknown, but a strong tug pulled me toward it. I could sense that Eli was trying to reach me. No, dear. You can't. Mrs. Johnson protested, her voice strained. It's too dangerous. But her warning barely registered. I was already at the door, feeling like I was moving against a force that demanded I stay. I just had to know what Eli wanted. I won't know unless I go. I stepped outside, the fresh air hitting my skin like a wake-up call. As I made my way back to the treehouse, the sunlight seemed to dim, shadows stretching ominously over the ground. The laughter grew faint but still echoed, filling the silence around me. When I reached the treehouse, I hesitated. The wooden ladder looked different, sinister even. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of Eli's name written on the photograph. I had to try. As I climbed, each rung creaked beneath my weight. The air grew colder, heavy with unspoken words. I reached the opening and stepped inside. It was darker than before, the sunlight barely piercing through the swaying leaves. Eli. I whispered, and the silence returned thick and oppressive. Then I heard it, a faint giggle, soft and airy, coming from somewhere in the shadows. My heart leapt. Eli. I called, my voice trembling. I felt stupid, talking to nothing. But I had to believe he could hear me. Suddenly, the laughter turned into a more distinct sound, a child's voice, pleading. Help me. I froze, the chills dancing down my spine. The voice echoed around me, wrapping me in an unsettling embrace. I felt drawn toward the far wall where the laughter lingered like a haunting melody. Then, in the corner of my eye, I caught something moving, a swirl of white mist that shaped into a faint outline of a child. I gasped, staggering back. Eli. I could hardly breathe. The mist flickered, and the outline wavered. Help me find it. Find what? I urged, desperate to understand. But then, like a candle blown out, he vanished, leaving a whisper of cold behind. The air thickened, and panic rose within me. I needed answers, but I was utterly lost. And just like that, everything turned dark. My surroundings vanished, leaving me alone in an endless void. My thoughts raced. What did he want? I felt a sense of urgency grip me tightly. There had to be a reason I was here. And then, I heard it again, that familiar giggle wrapping around me. This time, it wasn't just Eli's voice. Someone else had joined him, 2 children, laughing together in the dark. I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to hold on. Faint memories flickered into view, toys, games, and forgotten secrets. What was happening? Why was I here? Just then, the darkness receded again, and I found myself back outside the treehouse, gasping for air. I felt like I had been through a whirlwind. But one thought loomed larger than the rest: I had to figure out what Eli was asking for. What was lost? What was buried? And just as I resolved to find out, a gust of wind swept through the trees, its chilly breath delivering the last words I needed to hear. Help me find it. I stood outside the treehouse, the weight of Eli's words pressing down on me. I could still hear the echo of laughter in my mind, mingling with a rising panic. I needed to figure out what he wanted and what it all meant. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone lurking in the shadows, but the area was deserted. I took a deep breath and stepped back inside. The dim light felt stifling. I moved cautiously, scanning for any sign of Eli. "What do you want me to find?" I murmured into the silence. The air felt thick against my skin. I looked around the cluttered interior, broken toys, dusty books, and old art supplies scattered throughout. Something tugged at the corner of my mind, a memory of us spending afternoons up here, creating and playing. But that was a lifetime ago. Think, I whispered to myself, kneeling down to search through a pile of forgotten items. My fingers brushed over something cold and metallic. I pulled it out, an old compass, tarnished but intact. Eli had always loved exploring. Was this it? I stood up, turning the compass in my hands. The needle spun wildly, as if searching for direction. "Eli, is this what you want?" I called out. But the laughter had faded. It left me with a heavy silence that felt more foreboding than before. I closed my eyes for a moment, focusing on the sensation of the compass in my palm. There had to be something more. Just then, a loud bang echoed from below. My heart dropped. I glanced down through the treehouse window. The ground was empty, but the noise felt too close. Was someone or something trying to tell me to leave? I hesitated, feeling a strong pull to stay. But fear prickled at the back of my mind. I took a step toward the ladder when I caught sight of something glimmering in the corner of the room. I approached slowly, heart racing. It was hidden beneath a layer of dust, a small, silver locket. I picked it up gingerly, its surface engraved with intricate patterns that shimmered even in the dim light. "What are you?" I whispered, feeling drawn to the locket like a magnet. I noticed a faint whisper drifting through the treehouse, growing louder. It was Eli's voice again, but now it had a different tone and urgency that set my nerves on edge. "Help me find it, please." Suddenly, a gust of wind burst through the treehouse, rattling the walls and sending papers flying around me. I stumbled back, nearly falling over. The compass clattered to the floor, the needle spinning out of control. My heart raced as the laughter returned, but it was twisted and dissonant now, echoing with a hint of desperation. "Eli!" I shouted, clutching the locket tightly. "Where are you?" The shadows around me twisted and writhed, forming shadows of children playing. Their faces were familiar, but distorted, like they were from a distant dream. I couldn't make out details, and that only fueled my anxiety. Then, like a spotlight cutting through the darkness, I saw a glimpse of what looked like a hidden compartment in the wall. My hand shook as I reached out toward it, each heartbeat echoing in my ears. Before I could reach it, everything went dark once more. The laughter turned into a scream, and I shouted back, "I'm coming." Then, silence. I blinked, the darkness closing in around me. For a moment, I couldn't move, my body frozen in that void. Then, a faint light flickered to life, illuminating the treehouse in a ghostly glow. The scattered toys and forgotten art supplies bathed in a silvery flood, but it felt wrong, like a memory twisted just enough to become unsettling. My breath came out in quick bursts. I was back in the treehouse, but it felt altered. The shadows danced longer and seemed to stretch toward me, as if hungry. The air was heavy with an unshakable sense of dread. "Eli!" I called out again, voice quivering on the edge of fear. No answer. Only silence lingered, a silence that made my skin crawl. I clutched the locket tighter, wishing for its weight to anchor me. My gaze darted toward the corner, where I thought I'd seen the compartment again. I hesitated, battling the icy grip of fear. What if I opened it? What if nothing was inside? Or worse, what if there was something there? Pushing through my hesitation, I moved toward the wall. I could still hear the echoes of Eli's voice in my mind, pleading like a ghost asking for salvation. "Help me find it." Just as my fingers brushed the wood, something nudged at the back of my mind. A detail, a memory. I twisted around, focusing on the clutter. What was it we were looking for? I whispered, trying to recall every adventure we ever had. A game, a treasure, anything. Then, behind my back, a whispered sound unnerved me. It was breathy, like wind passing through hollow branches. I turned quickly, but nothing came. The shadows had shrunk, as if they were pulling away from my movement. Suddenly, the compass rolled toward me, stopping right at my feet. The needle finally stilled, pointing firmly toward the wall. The urge to follow its direction overwhelmed me. It was as if it was commanding me to uncover whatever was hidden behind the wood. With a trembling hand, I pushed against the area the compass indicated. The hidden compartment clicked open. My breath caught in my throat, I couldn't believe I had actually done it. Inside was a small box, intricately carved and decorated with symbols I didn't recognize. I pulled it out and felt its weight. The workshop noises from before faded back into my awareness. The laughter returned, distorted and chilling. As I lifted the lid, the light flickered again, casting the room in half-light. Inside the box lay a collection of notes, all covered in scribbles. I couldn't make sense of them. Each line blared urgency, but the words danced just past my understanding. What were these? I pulled out one of the notes hastily. The writing was messy, but I caught a name: Eli. My heart raced, and I flipped through the notes. They were filled with strange drawings, symbols I couldn't understand, and a diagram that looked like a map of our neighborhood. Yes. I breathed, excitement mixing with my fear. Maybe this was what Eli wanted me to find. But then a sudden chill swept through the room, and I froze. The laughter morphed into a low growl, suddenly malevolent. My heart raced again. I wasn't alone. That was when I saw it, a shadow creeping along the wall, moving closer. Panic surged as I realized the direction of the shadow was toward the compartment. The air crackled with something threatening. I snapped the box shut, driven by instinct. Whatever was there with me, I needed to escape now. Eli. I shouted one last time, but I had no answer. Only the darkness and the approaching whisper of footsteps. I stumbled back, my heart racing, breath hitching in my throat. The footsteps were closer now, dragging slowly across the wooden floor, echoing in the suffocating silence. My instincts screamed at me to run, but the shadows felt like they had a grip on my feet, pulling me deeper into the darkness. Eli. I called again, a shaky voice breaking the unsettling quiet. My pulse thudded loudly in my ears. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I darted toward the ladder. I had to escape. Whatever lurked in the treehouse felt wrong more than just an absence, it radiated a presence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. As I scrambled, the box slipped from my fingers and clattered to the ground. I didn't look back. Not now. I had to get out. My foot hit the first rung, but then I remembered the notes. Maybe they could explain what was happening, how I was supposed to help Eli. Just the thought of him gripped me, a spark of hope anchoring my fear. I hesitated, glancing back at the hollow darkness now engulfing the box. I could barely make out its shape, the lid slightly ajar as if inviting me to return. The footsteps stopped suddenly. A deep breath in, a quick decision. I turned and dashed back. Crouching low, I reached for the notes scattered inside the box. They seemed to pulse with a life of their own under the faint light. In my panic, I grabbed handfuls and shoved them into my pockets. I needed answers. Just as I straightened up, I was hit with a wash of cold air. It rushed past me like a current, rattling the remnants of toys that lay strewn about. I felt it wrap around me, a heavy shroud that made me freeze. Something was watching. I turned slowly and saw it, then a figure, cloaked in darkness, standing just beyond the edge of light. It was not Eli. Fear solidified in my chest. The figure stood tall, a featureless shape that neither advanced nor retreated. I could feel a malevolent energy radiating from it. My hands trembled as a chill spread through my fingers. I had nowhere to run now. In an act of desperation, I shouted again, louder this time, Eli. I need you. My voice cracked, wavering in the tension of the moment. The shape shifted, as if acknowledging my plea, and I caught a glimpse of movement behind it, a flicker of light that was strangely familiar. Maybe it was a trick of the mind, but I thought I saw Eli's face flash, a distorted reflection of my memories. Frantic, I realized the notes contained more than a plea for help. There was knowledge, their power. I had to uncover it. The figure took a single step toward me, and the darkness swelled, blocking my escape. In that moment, the shadows whispered, a chilling chorus that filled my head. And when I closed my eyes, I felt the weight of their demands pressing down. I opened them, heart racing, panic clawing at my throat. I was trapped, and the only way out seemed to be through what lay before me. What do you want? I called out, desperation seeping into my words. And then, right at that moment, I understood. The notes, a map, an answer. I had to decipher them. They held the key to whatever mystery was unfolding, and I couldn't waste another second. The figure loomed closer, the shadows writhing in anticipation. I needed to uncover the truth. But with each second, the darkness threatened to swallow me whole. The choice was clear: seek the knowledge in those notes or succumb to the growing dread. With resolve igniting my fear, I dove for the box again, ready to face whatever awaited me in both darkness and light. I grabbed the box and pulled it close, my heart thudding like a hammer. The notes inside were torn, ink smudged, but even in the dim light, I could make out a few phrases: find the key, the light will guide you, and trust the shadows. Each word seemed to vibrate in my chest, echoing with the urgency of my situation. I realized the figure was still there, unmoving but present, and it wasn't just an ordinary shadow. It was as if it fed off my fear, drawing me into its grasp. Instinctively, I skimmed through the notes, desperate to find something, anything that would help me. Panic surged each time those ominous whispers filled my ears. Help Eli, they taunted. The words began to swirl in my mind, becoming a mantra that drowned out my thoughts. And then I found it. In a crumpled piece of paper, a rough sketch showed the treehouse with a small circle marked at its center. The heart, it read. I remembered Eli often said the treehouse held secrets. A feeling washed over me, a weird sense of recognition. The figure took another step forward, and I felt the air around me crackle. Whatever it was, it seemed to sense my discovery, and it grew more restless. I clenched the box tighter, a decision forming in my mind. Is the heart in the treehouse? I shouted, half expecting a response. Silence met my question, but deep down, I knew that finding whatever this heart was might be the key to saving Eli. Just show me. I yelled, the words fueled by a mix of fear and determination. The figure flickered, and for a moment, it seemed to dissolve into the surrounding darkness. Then, a soft light shone from the corner of the room, pulsing like a heartbeat. I squinted, seeing a faint trail leading deeper into the shadows. It flickered again, beckoning me. I felt a surge of hope. It was something, anything to help me escape. But then the figure surged back into view, blocking the light. With its presence came a wave of cold that wrapped tightly around me, leaving no room for hesitation. I could feel the threat clinging to the space, demanding my submission. Enough. I growled, steeling my resolve. I had already faced so much, I wouldn't let fear take me now. With the notes in hand and the flickering light guiding me, I took a step forward. Whatever shadowed figure was trying to intimidate me was met with quiet defiance. I defined Eli, and I knew I had to get to the heart of this. As I started to advance into the darkness, the atmosphere shifted. I felt the shadows part around me like a thick fog rolling away. But then, just as I turned toward the source of the light, everything froze. That's when I saw it, a small door barely visible in the wall, hidden by layers of darkness. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't tell if it was an escape or another trap. I had to choose. Was this my path forward, or a misstep that could lead to more danger? With a hesitant hand, I reached for the door knob, my heart racing at the possibility of what lay beyond. The knob turned with a soft click, and I felt a rush of cool air as the door creaked open. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, but the flickering light was growing dimmer, urging me forward. The darkness beyond the door was thick, almost like it had a life of its own, but the need to find Eli pushed me through. I stepped inside. My eyes adjusted slowly, revealing a cramped space filled with ancient toys and forgotten mementos. Dust danced in the slivers of light that filtered through cracks in the wood above. It felt like entering a time capsule, but instead of nostalgia, all I felt was unease. Ahead, a small staircase spiraled upwards. It looked warped, each step creaking silently as if echoing warnings. I glanced back at the door, half expecting the shadow figure to follow. The space felt alive with energy, pulsing in a way that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I climbed slowly, heart pounding, each step feeling heavier than the last. The whispers were back, swirling around me. Find the heart, find the heart. Each word ignited a sense of urgency, sending me further up. Reaching the top, I pushed open another door. Inside, I found myself in the treehouse Eli used to tell me stories about. It smelled of damp wood and forgotten summers. A small window on one side revealed a view of the evening sky, painted in hues of orange and deep blue. But as I took in the space, I also noticed something strange. In the center of the room was a large, battered chest, its surface covered in carvings that looked like they were made by hands long ago. My pulse quickened. This could be what the notes had mentioned. The heart. Approaching the chest, I felt a pull that was both inviting and alarming. I reached out, fingers brushing the carvings. It was as though the wood warmed under my touch, and suddenly, a wave of memories flooded my mind. I could see Eli building this place. The laughter echoed, but all I felt now was dread. Then, without warning, the whispers grew louder, almost chaotic. The light from the window flickered, and shadows danced menacingly along the walls. I took a step back, startled. "What do you want?" I shouted, a mix of frustration and fear spilling from me. "Trust the shadows," the words hissed back, filling the room. The air turned icy, and the chest rattled violently. Panic surged. I had to get out of there. But before I could turn away, the chest burst open, and I stumbled backward as a blinding light shot out. Inside, I caught a glimpse of something, a glimmering object nestled among the debris. Visions of Eli flashed before me, and a surge of determination settled in my gut. I had to reach that heart. But just as I leaned closer, a pair of cold hands clasped around my wrist, pulling me back harshly. "You won't take it," a voice whispered menacingly. I turned, eyes wide, as I faced the owner of the hands, another figure, dark and indistinct, just like the first. Everything inside me screamed to run, but I was rooted to the spot, caught in their gaze. Now it was clear, whatever was happening, I had to confront it. I had to uncover the truth behind Eli's disappearance. The air crackled again, and the first figure loomed closer, disrupting the shadows. There was no escape now, I was in too deep. I needed to fight. But who was the true enemy, the shadows or the heart? I held my breath, the two figures closing in, their combined shadows swallowing the light of the chest. The whispers intensified, drowning out my thoughts. "You shouldn't be here," came a hiss from one of the apparitions, its voice devoid of warmth. "He shouldn't have been found." "Why?" I shouted, feeling a surge of anger with every word. "Why are you keeping Eli trapped? He needs help." The figures recoiled as if struck by my accusation, the darkness rippling around them. "He is ours," the other one spoke, voice low and simmering with resentment. "He belongs to us. He wanted to stay." "No," I refuted, feeling a burning conviction within me. "He wanted to be found." I glanced back at the chest, pulsating with that blinding light. Eli had to be close. I had to believe he still wanted to be free from whatever held him. The shadow on my wrist tightened, icy fingers biting into my skin. "You're too late." It screeched, grasping harder with a fury that chilled me to my very core. But just as fear threatened to engulf me, something flickered in my mind: the notes, the map, those urgent reminders. I had to find the heart, the means to free Eli from this curse. "If you want him, then let me through," I bellowed, my voice seeping with raw determination. "Let me help him." The figures wailed in response, a cacophony of dread that made the walls shake. I felt the grip around my wrist loosen slightly, and with that momentary reprieve, I lunged toward the chest. The light erupted stronger, bathing the shadows in an iridescent glow. I could feel Eli's presence, a warmth radiating from the chest that spoke of joy, adventure, and longing. If I could just reach inside with shaking hands, I dove in, feeling the soft fabric of a much-loved toy, a small stuffed bear named Oscar that had been Eli's for as long as I could remember. My fingers brushed the edge of something hard, cool, and smooth. I pulled it out, a small, silver locket gleaming like a beacon. The moment I held it, a memory swept through me: Eli smiling, his laughter ringing in the air, a secret shared between friends. In that moment, the shadows shrieked, the hostile energy encircling me like a vortex. "No! You cannot take the heart!" they screamed, clawing at my mind. "Eli!" I shouted, clutching the locket against my chest. "This is yours. You need it." I thrust it toward the figures, confident I had found what he was searching for. And in that moment, everything changed. The light from the locket expanded outward, pushing against the shadows that clung to it. The figures screeched in a frenzy, jolting back as if burned by the illumination that now flooded the room. The darkness diminished, and the laughter returned, echoing in joyous relief. "Eli!" I called, my head spinning with hope. There was a brilliant flash, and through the chaos, Eli's faint outline emerged, a shimmering silhouette of a boy. His wide eyes brimmed with gratitude as he reached out toward me, whimsical light swirling around him. "Help me!" he urged again, this time with a sense of urgency that tethered me to reality. "Take my hand!" I cried, stretching out my own, heart hammering in my chest. But just as Eli's fingers brushed against mine, the shadow figures surged forward, a wave of fury mixed with despair. "He belongs to us!" they wailed, grabbing at him, their voices drowning in anguish. In that instant, I knew what I needed to do. "No!" I shouted, drawing strength from the locket. "You can't have him!" I thrust the locket toward the shadows, unleashing bursts of light that rained down like stars. They screamed and fractured, dissipating into wisps of smoke that curled away from the warmth. "Eli! Now!" I yelled, urgency clawing, and he leaped forward, taking my hand. The moment our fingers entwined, a shock of energy surged through me, a golden thread connecting us, binding our spirits in the fight against the dark. In a flash, we were enveloped in that light, a shimmering cocoon that shielded us as the shadows dissipated, the figures vanishing into echoes of the past. And then silence fell upon us. The weight of the darkness lifted, and I stood, gripping Eli's hand amidst the glow. "I thought you wouldn't find me," he whispered, his young voice filled with wonder. "I always will," I replied, feeling the burning warmth of hope surge in my chest. But as the light began to fade, I couldn't shake that lingering uncertainty. I looked back at the now empty chest. What had I truly released? As Eli and I stepped together into a world full of mysteries still unwritten, the question remained: was everything I encountered merely shadows of childhood fears or something far more complex? Even as we escaped the house with its secrets, I could still sense the whispers lingering, the playful laughter merging with the traumas of yesterday. Shadows of the past, entwined with the promise of tomorrow, lingered in the corners of my mind, half memories intertwining with unknown truths, each story half told. I moved away from my childhood home, embracing the dawn of clarity but knowing that I would never return without feeling that suffocating mix of warmth and dread. The treehouse stood behind me, a monument of laughter, loss, and lingering questions left to dance in the shadows. And for Eli, a glimmer of hope washed over everything, but the shadows were never truly gone. I would always remember. I still think of the laughter sometimes, of the boy in the treehouse, and wonder, did we set him free, or have we merely begun to rewrite a story still lost in the echoes of the past?